So what is sourdough? Sourdough is essentially a flour-water mixture that wild yeast from your environment decides to live in. It eats the flour and it creates air bubbles, which rises your dough, it rises your batter, and if you have enough sourdough or yeast in your sourdough from the environment, then basically you have enough to rise something like a bread. When you feed your sourdough, you typically measure out a specific set amount and then you discard the rest. Now, a lot of people use the discard because there is still some leavening ability for it, or just as a flavoring because sourdough has a signature tang. So I often, when I do it, have sourdough discard. I only feed mine once a week because it lives in the fridge, but if it lived on the counter, I could be feeding it twice a day. So this is how I feed my sourdough. Feeding my sourdough is simple. I gather my materials, and in my case, I use a scale for accuracy. I take my sourdough starter and I pour it into a secondary container. This could be a bowl, but I like using mason jars because I can easily see what I'm doing. I measure out 113 grams of starter and 113 grams of water. I like to keep it lukewarm, and because of the pH and the lack of chemicals put into my water supply, I'm able to just use tap. I then use all-purpose flour, again 113 grams, mix it, transfer over my measure, which is in my case a rubber band, cover it loosely with plastic wrap, and then we're done. It's fed. And here we have my sourdough discard. So it's quite a bit, as you can see. It's about this much in my jar, so a significant amount. And if I wanted to, I could feed that or I could have fed that at the same time that I fed my other and gifted it. That's one way to use your sourdough discard. My favorite method to use up my sourdough starter is discard crackers. So why discard crackers? So for one, I have tried a lot of different ways to use up my sourdough starter, including pancakes and waffles, coffee cake, pizza dough, a whole range of things, and they all are fantastic. I recommend trying a whole variety of things. But for me, I find that even when I feed it only once a week, letting it live in the fridge, I still have a lot. And once a week is a lot if you have a coffee cake in a household with 2 people, unless you're gifting it, freezing it, or otherwise just like getting it out of the house. So one of the ways that I have found is that actually making crackers is ideal. Unless I have a plan for it already of like making a batch of waffles to put in the freezer or for breakfast. So I have found that crackers, one, they're shelf stable, they're not going to dry out. You just have to worry about putting them in a container that they're not going to get any moisture. 2, you could also freeze the crackers. And 3, they are an easier snack. You're not always in the mood for a waffle, but there are tons of ways to eat crackers that you can just incorporate them into your lunch. So here is how you make the crackers. For the crackers, I highly recommend using a stand mixer, however it is not necessary. First, I take my sourdough discard, which you saw, and it is about 127 grams, which is around a cup. I pour that into my mixer, add 113 grams, also about a cup, of all-purpose flour, and then 57 grams of butter, which is about 4 tablespoons. I use salted butter in all of my bakes, so I am going to be scant with just a pinch of salt. But if you did not use salted butter, about a half a teaspoon. I then put this in the stand mixer and let it mix until it becomes a dough that is not sticky. If it's a little sticky, just add a touch more flour until it's not. This doesn't take very long. I take it off the mixer and I mix it a little bit by hand just to judge how sticky it is. I could have put my herb in before this point, but I did not think about that, and I'm using fresh rosemary. I've put a variety of things in these crackers, including nutritional yeast, everything but the bagel seasoning, and it just gives like a nice little added flavor. Although you don't have to put anything in them, and you can just sprinkle it on the top if you want to add, for example, everything but the bagel seasoning on top. So I just chopped that up roughly. Since it is fresh, I didn't use too much. If it was dried, you could use a little bit more. I just mix it up a touch more by hand. Then I take my plastic wrap, pull out a section, and you are going to want to put half in each plastic wrap bundle. This is because when you roll it out, you want to have it very thin. So by sectioning it off, you are creating a little pocket for each cookie sheet. So you just wrap it up tight, squish it down a little, and there you go. It's ready to go in the fridge for about 30 minutes. So as our crackers are in the fridge, how do you like to eat your crackers? I like to eat mine with tuna as probably the top one at the moment, followed by hummus, peanut butter, and cheese. Not all together, obviously, separate, but those are some of the ways that I like to eat these crackers. How do you like to eat your crackers? Let me know in the comments below. Now, these have been in the fridge for about an hour and a half. You can do as little as 30 minutes or a few hours, like I did. So now I'm going to roll them out, we're going to bake them, and then we will have our crackers. As I said, it is time to roll out our crackers. I recommend rolling them out on parchment paper so that way they are easy to transfer to your cookie sheet. I just put a little flour on the parchment paper, and then I put down the dough from one of my bundles. This is why you want to split it in two, because as you roll it out, it may grow larger than what your cookie sheet can handle before getting thin enough. Then I just drizzle some oil and baste it around with a brush. And then in my case, I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of salt, but you can use whatever seasoning you'd like. Then you prick it with a fork so it does not puff too much, and then you cut it with a pizza cutter. Depending on how thick you roll out your dough, if it's thicker, it will be a little bit like a pita cracker, and if it is thinner, then it'll be more of a crisp, thin cracker. It is up to you. After we cut the crackers, they are now ready to go into the oven. I have it set to 350 and it takes me about 40 minutes due to my oven. I rotate after 20 minutes and keep checking until they are looking how I want them to, which is lightly golden brown and fully cooked. Then you take them out, let them cool, and now you are ready to serve. And that's how you make sourdough discard crackers. If you like this video, you might like my baking playlist. And if you didn't like this video but made it this far, maybe you'd like my decluttering playlist. Thanks for watching.